Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michel Desmarquet and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, for our intro and outro. And you can find him basically anywhere music can be found. And he is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music. 'Tis the season. Check him out. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis for the artwork that we have for the Outer Realm. And Lord only knows we love our banners. So thank you, thank you. Tonight, all I can say is wow. The Outer Realm welcomes for the very first time Samuel Chong. He's going to be discussing, and I don't even know if I'm going to say this, I'm going to butcher it, and I'm going to ask him how to say it, but the Thiaoouba Prophecy, which is a book by, the author is actually deceased, but by Michel Desmarquet. And this book is just going to be mind-blowing. It pretty much is going to talk to you about the meaning of life, about Michel's alien abductions or messages for humanity, just for reincarnation, ancient history. There may even be some prophetic stuff in there. It's just going to be amazing. Just amazing. That's all I'm going to say. So in order to do that, please head over to any of the 8 chat rooms that are simultaneously on right now. We're airing with Facebook. It's Canada's Most Haunted is UFO Paranormal Radio. It's United Public Radio News on the flip side. Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover. As for YouTube, again, UFO Paranormal, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and of course, The Outer Realm. And don't forget Facebook, of course, The Outer Realm, because I don't even forget that, honestly, probably because I didn't see it to the very bottom. I know. I just having one of those stinking days, that's all I can say. And I see people are chiming in, so I see our guest is also here. So Amelia, if you want to go ahead.
Absolutely. My gosh, my honor. Tonight's guest, Samuel Chong, is a certified court, and there goes my screen. Hold on.
Really? It's one of those days. It's Mercury retrograde.
There's 6 planets in retrograde from what I read today. Yes. But anyways, let me start
right.
over. Please forgive me. Samuel Chong is a certified court interpreter and a Chinese translator in Los Angeles. He was instrumental in arranging for the Chinese publication of Michel Desmarquet's book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, which has been a bestseller in both China and Taiwan, a rare phenomenon. He also translated the book 334% Lies, the Revelation of H.M. versus Stuhl, an autobiography of the High Master of the Chair of a secret society that was started in Germany. Can't wait to hear more.
Well, he's here. Yay.
Hello. How are you?
Hi, Samuel. How are you?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me.
I hope we didn't butcher the name of that book. My gosh.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're so honored. And I've definitely been researching all of this and watched, of course, some other interviews that you've done. So needless to say, very intrigued over here. But how I want to start off is, how do you pronounce this? Because I'm sure we're both butchering this thing.
Thiaoouba.
Okay, so I wasn't too far off. Okay, thank you. It's just like sounded out, just like it sounds.
Yeah. My
Okay.
Italian background, it messes with me every time I have to pronounce something.
It's because you got to put a little flair every time you
I
talk.
always have to sing. I have to sing it, right? I have to sing it. Remember,
to
I
sing
spoke
it.
Italian
My God.
before English, so my mind still works that way.
It goes into it. Yes. Well, thank you, Samuel. I want to be able to get as much in as possible here because I know there's just so much information. But where I like to start, of course, is the beginning. Why this book? Like, were you soul searching yourself for something, or did you come upon it and just get intrigued? Why this book?
Yeah, I was always curious about the paranormal, and I
Ah,
was always having a lot of questions, such as what are the ghosts, the Great Pyramid, who built it, and for what purposes, what
yes,
happened really in the Bermuda Triangle. I was looking for like a book that can answer all these questions, and including the questions I had about the Bible. So I believe that if we are to learn from anyone out of space, we should learn from the best ETs. They should have all the knowledge and answer everything, every possible paranormal event that occurs on Earth. So in my subconscious mind, I was always looking for this one book that kind of like is a like kind of gives like a closure, and I
right,
found this book.
right, right. Well, it definitely getting into this. It definitely has a mix of everything. Do you feel that this is essentially just a book about life on average?
Yes, it's really a book of life, on life, the secret of life, the purpose of life, and also a lot of the interesting aspects of how we are doing in current world and what
Mm,
we need to do to improve, how we can improve.
right. So, what brought Michel to write this book? He was
Well,
obviously there's a big story. This is this is it, right? So, can you start with that and just lead us through?
well, he was actually ordered to write this book, to write about what really happened to him. He
Okay.
was taken by this group of beautiful looking and benevolent, all loving ETs to their planet for about 9 days and then came back. And he witnessed a lot of interesting things and also got a lot of answers, such as where we came from originally and what happened to the ancient civilizations. What are the ghosts? And also, what happened to the stories in the Bible, like Moses or Jesus Christ? And
Mhm.
really, what are the involvements of the ETs to us throughout history?
Wow. So he was, I guess, an experiencer. So he was taken on board a ship. Did he specify which extraterrestrials, let's just say, borrowed him? I hate to say abducted because it sounds like he had really great experiences. And there's such a stigma, a bad stigma attached to, these sort of contacts.
Yes, he was taken by this group of beautiful looking ETs that they're really tall, 8 foot or 9 foot tall. They have blonde hair. They're Nordic looking. They have all the abilities to perform miracles like Jesus did in the past.
Wow.
And they
Oh
could
my.
levitate. They never age. They're forever looking, forever young looking, and they also can uh, communicate through telepathy. So
Mm,
they can do all the wonderful things that they did and present to Michel Desmarquet. So they
right.
belong to a category 9 planet.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, I guess being given all of this information, whether I imagine there's messages that were for mankind, for the rest of us. So what did he do with all of that information? Was he allowed to talk about this? Had many years passed before he could reach out, and like how long before these experiences and the time that he wrote the book, was this compiled over, let's say, a year, a lifetime of experiences? If you can break that down.
Mhm. The event happened in 1987,
Okay.
in June, near where he lived in near Cairns, Australia.
Mm,
So he wrote a book 2 years after, in 1989. He finished writing the book,
mhm.
and in 1989, and the book got published in 1991. And after he wrote the book, he went on a lot of public lectures. But people at that time, most of the people didn't believe him, including his wife, who thought he was having an affair with another woman for 9 days.
Oh my gosh, because he was missing.
Yes, he was missing for 9
Yes.
days. Yes.
Yeah. That's easier to believe than the other story.
Yes. So after he came back, his wife really was really bitter about him and divorced him. So
Oh.
he complained a lot and had a major depression and emotional breakdown.
Oh.
Yeah, but there are some people who took his messages and followed him. I learned about the book in actually 2014, on Amazon.
Right.
So I read the book and I was determined to look for him because I really was really interested in what else he experienced and learned and he didn't put in the book.
Mhm. And
And
so, yeah.
so I did a lot of research on him, search on the internet and find out where he was at that time. I didn't know about his exact address, but I found a photo where a tourist, like in which a tourist took where he lived, like a bungalow. And I
Mhm.
decided to take the chance to fly to Vietnam, where he was living at that time, and to really just landed there. And then I showed a picture to the taxi driver, and the taxi driver took me to his place.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
How did he know?
Well, he didn't know I was coming. And the first time that I met him, after he learned that I was looking for him because of the book, he was really annoyed because he was a private person. He didn't want to
Oh,
be bothered by this.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you, I just need to be off trail for just a second. Did you have any experiences as a young child that created this deep interest and thirst for knowledge of experiences?
Well, I was always curious about everything. I was really interested in learning the reasons and the causes for the paranormal. I had a dream when I was in elementary school. I remember that I was so eager to move up to a different level, and I really wanted to see how I could advance much faster. I didn't want to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Just curious because one doesn't just pick up a book on, someone's experience unless there's something that has happened or a deep desire for more.
Because it's a really deep book.
It is. Yeah.
Yes, it contains a lot of specific verifiable details that people can actually research and look up
Mhm.
for more information. And I did a lot of research and found every single detail mentioned in the book. Every single detail mentioned in the book can be verified. And the things that cannot be verified now seems to be the facts that can be verified in the future. For
Right.
example, there's one detail in the book saying that the moon is actually moving closer to Earth.
Right.
And
Yes.
yeah, so the current conventional wisdom is that the moon is actually moving farther from Earth by 4 centimeters away each year. But that fact was a fact that scientists learned about 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And there's actually no recent revalidation of the data. And there are some people really question about the distance between Earth and the Moon. And some people really suggest that the Moon is actually moving closer to Earth. And this book is so specific that says that in about 198,000 years or so, the Moon, our Moon, will crash onto the Earth.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is there any insight? Because there's a belief system that the moon is not even a celestial body, that it's actually a man-made base, I guess.
It's actually true because this
Oh,
book,
darn it.
this book actually clarify by saying that the Moon has a man-made base on the far side, on the back side.
Wow.
This book is so specific that says that about 300,000 years ago, there was a group of people from another planet trying to migrate to Earth, and they used the far side of the Moon as a transfer station. So they actually built a human base, and then for them to stay over a little bit of time and then transfer themselves onto Earth. And they actually landed on the continent of Lemuria.
Lemuria. Yes. Lemuria. So basically, there's ancient knowledge attached to this book. It speaks a little bit from what I heard you say about Atlantis, Lemuria, building of some of these like monuments that they had for the time, such as pyramids. Do you want to touch on that?
Yes, indeed. Ancient civilizations always built pyramids once they believed that they were spiritually mature enough to handle the tool. They built a pyramid as a tool to accumulate the cosmic energy. So on the continent of Lemuria, and also later on in ancient Egypt, they built the Great Pyramids in order to communicate with people from other planets by using the energy accumulated from the universe. They also used the pyramid, as a tool, along with some metal alloys, to concentrate energy in the sky so that clouds can be formed and rain would come down. So they could actually control the weather using the pyramid as a tool.
Interesting. Okay, here's the magic question. How were they built?
Oh, great.
I know.
Well, you were too relaxed when you answered that. I was just too relaxed.
So in ancient civilizations, they had great technologies such as anti-gravitational technologies. On the continent of Lemuria, they built the pyramid in their capital using anti-gravitational technologies and also using supersonic vibrational systems to cut the huge stones in a precise manner. And then they built it in a certain way that it can actually absorb cosmic energy. Similarly, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, according to this book, as told by the ETs, it was built actually 17,000 years ago by a learned person from Atlantis named Thoth, Thoth. During the 9-year period of time, he built the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And the pharaohs of ancient Egypt actually used the Great Pyramid in the correct way of communicating with people from other planets.
Okay, interesting. And let's see, people will tell you nowadays, archaeologists, mainstream academics will say, no, that's not a thing. So they call us conspiracy theorists if we lean towards that theory. And did they explain, what happened to the ancient Atlanteans and the Lemurians? Because we know, obviously they've disappeared, and we know that the Lemurians at some point ended up over the other side of the Atlantic and, South America, built, it's believed, Easter Island, things of that nature.
Yes, that's very The book actually mentions a lot about the details of what happened, give a lot of specific and interesting descriptions. Michel Desmarquet, the author, was actually taken into the Akashic record and
Right.
actually experienced what happened 14,500 years ago when the entire continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean.
Mhm.
What happened was that he actually saw that the king of Lemuria was having a council meeting with his councils or counselors, and they were discussing about the possibilities of a major earthquake coming towards them. And suddenly, earthquake occurred, and because of the gastrial spells beneath the continent, there was also a very strong volcanic activity, and suddenly the entire continent sunk into the ocean, just like overnight. There were some remaining parts of the continent that didn't sink, like the Easter Island, where you can still see the great statues of the Moas. According to the book, they built the statues in order to commemorate the people from Thiaoouba. They were about to transport the statues to their capital, but then the earthquake occurred, and then they weren't able to do so.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that. That's fascinating. Okay, so as we move forward, let's talk about, you mentioned when the people were spiritually ready. So this sounds to me like the message has more to do with spirituality, as far as, let's talk about the meaning of life. Is it more from a spiritual standpoint than with what we're expected to achieve than something else?
Yes, by spiritually ready, I meant that actually we did exist a lot of great civilizations on Earth, like Lemuria is one example, and also during a certain period of time in ancient Egypt, where people really focused on their spiritual development, not so much as the material wealth. So the author Michel Desmarquet actually saw that in ancient Lemurian civilization, people really didn't use money. They didn't have money. People just took whatever they needed. No one took advantage of other people. They just went to the market and grabbed everything that they needed and then went home. But then after the continent sunk, especially after Atlantis also disappeared, people didn't have the knowledge anymore because people in Lemuria didn't really they actually kept their secret of the knowledge of different technologies. They didn't give it to people in India or China or Africa. So they kept the technologies to themselves. So once they disappeared, all the technologies disappeared, especially after Atlantis sunk into the ocean. The civilizations went into a decay in which people, especially more and more, were focusing more on the material aspect of life, like gaining more money or more wealth. And jealousy turned into hate, and then wars occurred because of this. So people really did understand the meaning of life, which is to grow as much as possible with spirituality. And life is actually a lesson or experience that people can really uh, experience all the challenges and also learn how to respond to the life challenges in order to learn spiritual lessons. And only by having this kind of challenges or difficulties, we can know how to respond appropriately and how to learn the lessons the right way. And this is actually the essence, is to grow one's spirituality.
So basically, you lose your attachments because people have life of attachments. We attach as human beings to everything. We attach to people, we attach to places, we attach to things. So essentially, you're
Money.
saying it's hindering our evolution. Sorry, Amelia, go ahead.
No, I said, and money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? I think we see this in modern day. I think we've seen this in our parents' generation, that when everybody's equal and in the same place, they all get along. But once somebody does well, it's human nature for some will cheer them on, but the majority, they're not so happy. So it creates a division. And I believe that's what happened as well. It's just like the story of Moses. I'm not trying to go to the Bible, but the way they changed, when they were walking in the desert. But I'm fascinated by the pyramids. I need to go back because I tried to get in before. I saw and read that the tops of the pyramids are never spoken of because that's where all the communication comes through. Is that true? Does he write about that in the book?
Well, he wrote how the ancient people used the Great Pyramid. They sat in the middle of the pyramid, probably the king's chamber, and they did a lot of meditation. And he actually saw that like a bluish smoke went through that person onto the ceiling of that chamber and then up. And then it really had a lot of communication going on.
Do we know if anyone still does that there?
Well, they could do that in the past because the Great Pyramid was aligned correctly, the location and to the position. And nowadays, because of kind of the shifting of the Earth, the location is not as precisely as before.
I wonder if something otherworldly created that little rift or wave.
Makes you wonder, because the pyramids
energy.
that were intended to be tombs, resting places, really, I've been to the pyramids, and I don't think it was ever a resting place in the Great Pyramid for the king. People also report having unbelievable spiritual experiences in there. Some people have even claimed that they've had a bit of a time slip in there and then shift right back.
Yes, it is actually a very amazing structure. And a lot of scientists recently published papers on the Great Pyramid or the pyramid, saying that it can prove how the pyramid accumulates cosmic energy. And it's fascinating research.
It is. My gosh.
Well, it's still a topic of debate even today. While we're on the topic of Egypt, let's talk about the Sphinx.
Oh.
I know, it's another good one.
So one thing Michel Desmarquet didn't put in the book was about the Sphinx. He says that there are 3 chambers beneath the Sphinx. And when we are ready, when the time is up, the chambers can be opened and everything will be revealed. I find this to be very similar to what Edgar Cayce said about the Sphinx. And also a Russian person who claimed that there is also something beneath the Sphinx. And Michel Desmarquet specifically mentioned that if we try to open the chambers of the Sphinx now, we will not be able to do so, even if we are to use explosives, because it's just we are not ready yet.
Right, so it's a consciousness thing as well. So okay, well, I have a quick question, Amelia.
What does he mean by Chris Bob asks? Hi, Chris. What is the chamber between the feet?
Yeah, isn't there one that they have found?
Between the feet, like physically? There's a chamber?
Yes.
The chamber's under it, yes.
I didn't know that.
So you see the Sphinx, underneath the Sphinx, from the feet towards the body. So it's like a long rectangular shape. And beneath that, there are 3 chambers, according to Michel Desmarquet. And I don't think the Egyptian government will allow anyone to do additional research or just open it up because it's very political.
Is it something that is historically kept in records there that's open to the public, or is this a theory?
There are some ancient records that indicate there's something beneath the Sphinx.
Very interesting. It does make sense, though. Why wouldn't there be? They seem to really make great use of all space, and there was a purpose for every space. So I couldn't see there being a space and not a purpose. It just makes sense in so many ways. You can't deny that, right?
I think to the Egyptians, everything had a purpose. To a lot of the ancient
Yeah.
civilizations, everything had a purpose. I don't think they built just to commemorate something. I think they
No.
built because it had functionality. Okay, so let's hop around a little bit. Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, I've done my homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Bermuda Triangle. What's the story with the Bermuda Triangle?
It's actually a warp or like a portal to a parallel universe.
That's
Okay.
what I think. What I think. I'm afraid to fly to Bermuda. It's one of the islands I haven't seen, and I'm so afraid because I'm like, I'm the person that would fall through that portal. It would be me. If anybody's going, it's going to be me. So they do. It's a okay. Chris says a triangle portal. Then Samuel, you agree with that, or is it round?
No,
It's
right.
actually Michel Desmarquet didn't really say the shape, but he actually went into a parallel universe before getting on their spaceship.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he actually experienced what it's like inside the parallel universe.
Mhm.
He saw just people wearing medieval clothes walking around. He also saw people like Stone Age people, like savages, who couldn't really communicate in modern languages. So people were trapped there, and time stops in a parallel universe.
Mhm.
And people there don't feel any pain, and they don't feel hunger or thirst. I find that to be very, very interesting because I don't know if you know a person named David Paulides.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
who wrote a
Yes.
series of books on missing 411,
Yes.
documenting people who really missing or went dead in national parks in the U.S. When they found a corpse, they're far away that they couldn't have possibly walked that far in that short period of time. And some of the corpses he found were so kind of abnormal that he could see the bones. It's like they walked to their bones, like they didn't feel any pain at all.
Wow.
So they
Wow.
didn't feel any pain. And then Michel Desmarquet was told that people in the parallel universe don't feel any pain. So that matches.
It does match. So, I mean, there are power spots, portals, vortexes all over this planet. I mean, I think a lot of these ancient civilizations built on these spots for a reason. Maybe it's a time travel thing. Maybe it's, getting into these different dimensions or parallel universe. So, with this theory, that means we could be slipping in and out of parallel universes all the time.
Yes.
Crap, how do we get back? That's
And
what I want to know. Because I'm not
Right?
too fond of this one some days.
Like, is there an app?
so it's very interesting that David Paulides did a lot of research on where people normally went missing. So he
Right.
has a map showing the clusters of where people disappeared. So those are the places in which the parallel universe sphere flows around. So they're not just in one location all the time. They move around. And then when you want to get out, you have to be really careful because you might be in the middle of the air. And then when you try to get out, you might fall.
So you could drop on like a 10-story building or something if you just land, let's
Yes.
say, beside the building and not on the building,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yes.
That could not be good. So is it sort of like this Matrix thing? It really is. Like, is this a simulation? Are we just, or is this just really a time slip? We've just slipped into another dimension.
I think it's a natural phenomenon that just the spheres of parallel universe exist on Earth in space. And I think if NASA or some other scientific organizations really want to do some research, they can just use electromagnetic sensors to see where they see the anomalies, and then just draw them out. And I tried, but no one believed me. But so
Right.
Right.
No, dang it.
But I wonder, Samuel, if perhaps they have done this and they just don't want to lead on that they are aware of things. I think that's an easier.
Maybe they're just leaving holes everywhere. Because
I think
mankind
about
never
that as
seems to
well.
get things right. Okay, we'll get to some questions before we get too far ahead, Amelia.
Yes, no problem. Hi, Steve. Steve White says, how interesting. A question referring to the Bermuda Triangle because we don't see hardly any more ships or planes disappearing in today's times.
Yep.
Is it possible that this portal was open during those times that they disappeared and now closed? Is there a possibility of reopening? Somebody just curious and loves the subject. Thank you, Steve White.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. We don't really hear about that. We
No.
heard about, I did on another research for a show, there was a ship that disappeared back in 2019 or 2020. And I think there were like 9 people on board, something like that. They disappeared and they have never been found. And that's probably the first one that I've heard of in like years and years.
I think if they're disappearing that, we're not even told. I mean, there are many
Maybe.
pirate ships out there and ships that are in waters that no one is aware of. I mean, we're not aware of everything.
There's
So,
supposed to be an alien base under there too.
yeah, how are we to
My
know that
pyramid.
there isn't something like that? There aren't people actually disappearing.
Oh, okay, here's a theory. They have believed to have found a pyramid in the Atlantic Ocean in that area. So as we're talking about energy. So what are your thoughts on that? Is that the portal? Why aren't we seeing as much disappearing there? Or why aren't we being told? Probably a better question.
The Bermuda Triangle is probably one of the most well-known locations where ships and planes disappear. But there are other locations, other warps or portals on Earth that are lesser known.
Mhm.
Like if you follow David Paulides, you're going to see that he still does a lot of research on the missing people, and
Mhm.
there's still a lot of people go missing every year in national parks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Right. So it's not so much Bermuda.
Mm.
Oh,
Okay.
Yellowstone is one of the biggest. It's got the most missing people out of all of the national parks, and law enforcement will say it's because it's so large. How could you possibly, not get lost? Or, of course, there's more people there, but that's not true. Just saying, that's not true. Because when you take a hike anywhere, you have to register before you can go up so that they know whether or not to send forest rangers in to help you in case you hurt yourself if you're camping or walking. So they are aware of the percentages. Tamara says, over the Great Lakes in Canada, planes and ships have gone missing. That is true.
Ontario has Lake Ontario has a Bermuda Triangle. It's called the Lake Ontario Triangle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it extends out to the east coast of Canada. So yeah, so there appears to be some of these all over the place, obviously. But while we're talking about, parallel universe, let's talk about time travel.
Yes. The book mentioned about time travel, and it's actually helping. Remember, the book was written in the late 80s, and it actually pointed that out, that why the U.S. government at that time was not able to develop successfully a time machine yet. So it says that there's the Akashic record is real because when a planet is born, there's going to be like a cocoon shape of a psychosphere that rotates 7 times the speed of light. So this book is very particular, is so into the details and give you a specific number like 7 times the speed of light. Recording, so that kind of psychosphere records everything happens on a planet. So learned person with practice can actually access the Akashic record and experience and see what happened in the past. The future is a different story because even for the Thiaoubans from category 9 planet, the highest level of category, they can only predict what's going to happen in about 100 years or so. They cannot predict farther or more advanced than that. And the reason is that future is dependable on our actions, our decisions. So the futures can be changed, but the past is fixed. So that's why you can go back to the past.
Interesting.
Probably you can only see like what's generally about to happen in the future, and probably and possibly going to happen in the future. So the book was telling the U.S. government that in order to successfully develop a time machine, they should focus on the vibrations, not so much as the wavelengths. So I didn't know what that meant, but it made me think about the Philadelphia experiment.
That's right.
They projected a frequency of 400 something megahertz.
That's true. Well, Tesla was a part of that, and he always said the key to the universe is through vibration and frequency.
Yes.
But both. So you're saying that they've never got the vibration right.
Right.
Ah, that's really fascinating. So, anybody listening, get it right. Okay, so let's get back to the paranormal a little bit. You say the book talks about ghosts. So what are ghosts? What was he told ghosts were?
So ghosts, according to him or the ET, they are actually made of electrons. So we have a physical body. We also have our astral body. Our astral body is made of electrons. So when a person dies, 81%, here you go again, very specific numbers. 81% of electrons go with your astral body to your higher self. The other 19% remains on Earth in nature until they're recycled by nature or reunited with your astral body. So that 19% of the electrons, because of static forces, resemble the person when the person was alive. I mean the shape of that person. And also because electrons also have memories, they remember 13 things that the person did or familiar with when the person was alive.
Right.
So they remember the things they hated or loved.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not like Joe. It's not like a dimensional bleed through. It's like
our
an
producer
actual
calls
thing.
everything a dimensional.
I know our
bleed
producer
through,
calls
that's why.
everything a dimensional bleed through. It's like what? So okay, so that's interesting. So let's touch on reincarnation then, life reviews, things like that.
Yes, I think people familiar with the works of Dr. Raymond Moody, Dr. Ian Stevenson, Dr. Brian Weiss, and a lot of Dr. Michael Newton, they know that these doctors did a lot of research on reincarnation. And so the author, Michel Desmarquet, actually saw his previous 80 lives, his past 80 lives. He was like a beggar a few times, like a mining worker in Germany, like a hermit in living in mountains, like a goldsmith in Japan, and also a few times like just common people. But he was also once a queen of a large country on another planet. So he saw the different past lives he lived before, and reincarnation is real, and through the different lives he learned different life lessons, spiritual lessons. And this was his 81st life, and 81 is actually a magical number. It's mentioned a few times in the book, meaning that he is done with another great cycle.
And this can happen on any planet. It doesn't necessarily mean here on planet Earth. You can reincarnate anywhere as anything.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And he was on different planets a few times, and each time, and he recommended Dr. Raymond Moody's book for a reason, is that he also believes that once a person dies, the person will reveal how he did in or she did in the lifetime, and he would be able to feel how the other people felt when he did certain things onto the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would also take the opposite role of being the person who received his actions, and to feel to experience how that was felt by the other person. Yeah.
Right. And how does the life review work according to what Michel was told?
It's like a film, a movie, but more like a holographic film in which he would be able to see everything, feel everything, and not just himself's feelings, but also other people's feelings. So this
Yeah.
is after one dies, and before one decides to be born on Earth, and one also sees have a preview of one's life, and then choose to be born or not.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, you can make that choice
That
not
is
to
a
come
choice.
back.
Yes.
Huh, that just made me so happy because I'm like tired of being here.
Okay. We're going to back up again with questions before we get too far ahead. There we go.
Yep. Steve White says that's also interesting. So, as far as the theory goes that a spirit is electromagnetic energy, once he or she enters the afterlife, what are your thoughts on this? Is it in fact electromagnetic energy, or is it possibly something other, or both? Thank you. Just curious about your thoughts.
They're actually electrons. So when one dies, the astral body goes away and reunites with one's higher self. So they're all made of electrons. One electron can store a lot of memory, enough to store all the books in a library. So we remember everything from our past lives if we are able to use some kind of technique to do so. But when one is born onto the earth, everything is erased. So that's why we don't remember. Normally, like we don't remember what happened in our previous lives.
It's a cruel joke.
Yes.
Yes. You're supposed to keep improving, but you're not allowed to remember where you messed up. It's a cycle. It just keeps going. So
Wayne, best news ever. I agree.
I know.
I'm so happy.
Okay, so let's it's difficult because I want to touch on extraterrestrials. Let's touch on extraterrestrials and we'll save the sensitive stuff a little as we move along. So extraterrestrials, obviously there's, he had a wonderful experience. Michelle had, sounds to me like he had Nordics or Palladians or something along that line. They seem to be very advanced and very kind. A lot of people report not having really kind experiences. And the extraterrestrials that come up the most, of course, are the Greys. So was there any information given on how many other races were here? Are they here already? Where they come from, what their purposes are, et cetera, et cetera. I think you know where I'm going with it.
Yes.
Okay,
It
good.
was shown at least almost like 200 bodies of other ETs from other planets on the
Wow.
planet Thiaoouba. So Thiaoouba is one of the 3 Category 9 planets, and they have the role of being like a mentor to us. So
Wow.
if there are like 3 Category 9 planets, you can imagine that there are at least probably approximately 600 other ETs in our galaxy. So, and he actually met another ET from a different planet. And speaking of the Greys, yes, he was told about the Greys on Earth. They did come here and implant certain devices on certain people, but not as many people as many people claimed. So
Okay.
as of 1995, when he received a telepathic message about the Greys, he was told that there were only about 150 people or so at that time that had implants by the Greys. They did the implants just to observe us, to see how we respond to our increasingly troublesome immune system. Since 1948, our immune system has been decreasing year after year, and the Greys have the same issue. So they're trying to learn from us how we respond to the same situation. Because the Greys, they're a dying species. They also come from a Category 1 planet. And so they're also from a planet of sorrows like us.
So we're Category 1 as well. That really sucks. Oh my God, great. Okay.
And I would interject one thing. I know that the U.S. government is collaborating with the Greys to gain their technologies. I would say if you want to learn something, learn from the master, learn from the best, learn
Right.
from our ET, from a Category 9 planet, not from
From another
Category 1
Category
planet.
1. Right, right. So do you think that the government and militaries from around the world are emulating some of these, let's say, gray abductions by microchipping people and leading us to believe by maybe messing with our memories, like we as humanity, to lead them to believe that they're being taken by grace to cover up what they're doing?
I believe so. I believe so.
Okay.
There's evidence on it. I think remember that when Michel Desmarquet was taken onto their spaceship,
Right.
they disinfected him using yellow light and blue light, and also his astral body had to leave his physical body so that they could do the cleansing, the disinfection process more thoroughly.
With blue light.
So I think the government, they had the technology to imitate or simulate the
Right.
similar, like this kind of horrifying experience, making
Right.
people think that they were abducted by this gray aliens. I think the Greys are nice aliens. They don't harm us. If people feel this kind of fear or kind of damage done onto their physical body, I don't think those are done by ETs per
By
se.
ETs. Thank you. Thank you. Oh,
Would
I
you
think,
think that it's a possibility that it's military?
I believe so.
yeah, we're
You
of the
fit in
same mind.
perfectly here.
I know. We're of the same mind
Yeah.
with that. So here's a question that came up earlier, because Virginia must have been figuring out what was coming.
Yes. Hello,
So,
Virginia Earl. What do you know about cow mutilations? Do you believe they are connected to UFOs
or
I
or
think
military? I can read
Yeah.
Michelle's mind. So.
Yes, I know. Speaking of reading minds, yeah.
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
connected to the military. For one thing, the ETs, if they want to get something, they can actually materialize everything they wanted. At least the Thiaoubans can do that. They really don't need anything from Earth. Not to mention about cows. They could materialize a lot of things that we cannot even imagine. They can actually make an adult human being within 24 hours. They can really make a human being. Why would they kill or mutilate the cows?
When
Yeah.
they can
When they're so
advanced.
gentle too, though, but they're gentle
Yes.
beings, right?
Yes.
Right.
And speaking
right.
of the other, people may say, oh, maybe they're done by the other lower level ETs. I would say that according to universal law, the ETs are not to interfere or to really intervene with our lives in a negative way. So if they do so, we have mentors like the Thiaoubans. And the Thiaoubans actually said to Michel Desmarquet that they're constantly monitoring the activities of the Greys just to make sure that no damage is done onto us. And if any other ETs are to do anything damaging to us, they would have intervened against them. And on the other hand, I want to also say this, that Michel Desmarquet was told that we are really not ready to explore the moon or the universe because we are still fighting against each other. In other sense, the other means is that if we are to explore the universe, we would be the invaders, and this group of ETs, the Thiaoubans, would prevent us from doing so. So they wouldn't allow us to do any damaging things to other planets, and they wouldn't allow other people from other planets to damage us.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yeah.
part 2 of the question then.
Oh my
Amelia.
gosh, I can answer that. Virginia Earl, what's the purpose of the military mutilating cows? Would
Mhm.
you?
Any thoughts on that?
I don't have any knowledge
We
on
don't
that.
know.
Virginia,
Got
please.
nothing.
Okay, can I answer that?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Virginia,
Keep our listeners happy.
the purpose behind it is to instill fear in the world and fear in civilization so that you fear these beings.
That's right. False flags.
Yeah.
False flags, I think, is what they're trying to promote, to fear the day, I think, where maybe they want to make more of a public contact. A lot of people are having contact, but I think Amelia nailed it right on, because that's instilling fear will make people hesitant to want to deal with extraterrestrials who will, maybe tell you the truth the way Michel got the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that when I was into this field like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I read a lot of research done by Linda, and I had a lot of kind of puzzles and this kind of gruesome feeling, and I really didn't want to explore further.
Mhm.
But then I also did some research on how the world is run, and I really admire the courage of some of the researchers who had government whistleblowers saying that the U.S. government had the technology to do such things like cattle mutilations
Mhm.
or imitating the horrifying abduction experiences.
Mhm.
And I do think that our world, is not what it really appears to be. There are
Mhm.
some government operations to really kind of transport drugs, illegal drugs across the border,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
to provide financial resources to certain government organizations,
Mhm.
and it's really people need to be aware of it.
I
Absolutely.
agree with you completely,
I
especially when it comes to the criminal side of it. No one is untouchable. The higher the government, I
mm,
believe more corruption is behind a lot of these leaders. And as we've had people on before, other guests have said, the level of government that you see in the White House or in Canada with the Prime Minister is not the government that is making these decisions and doing these things. These are lower levels that even the leaders of our countries are not aware of what's going on. There's no
mm,
need for them to know. They're not there
mhm.
permanently. These are government associations, companies, agencies that are military.
So it seems that military
Have to
has
be
their hand
military
in.
trained to be like that. You would have to
Yeah.
be. You wouldn't be able to be out in the field unless you were military trained.
Yeah, they have their hand in pretty much everything, it would seem. And we'll put this right here. Has a
Sorry,
spin-off
Wayne.
of that. No, it's
Sorry,
okay.
Wayne. No, Wayne, he said I
Oh,
stole
who
his
stole his
comment.
comment? Yeah.
Yeah. MJ Guest. Hello, MJ. Why is the government in charge of informing the public? You voted him in. I don't That's a good
Well,
question.
it sounds to me like they're responsible for giving all the bad experiences with this. So, you know,
Government's in charge of informing you of many things, not just that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the media control,
Yes.
and it's really a major issue, especially in the last 2 years or so.
Mm.
A lot of the messages cannot really get out, even by licensed medical doctors in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And on certain issues, they get censored too. So if they censor licensed medical doctors in the U.S., who else can
Land
they
of the
censor?
free. Yeah.
Yes.
No, exactly.
Exactly.
If they can do it here, they can do it everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
Steve.
it's funny because there was a time before 2 years ago. I don't want to say the word so we get
No.
ripped off,
Mhm.
pulled off of YouTube, but there was a time before all of this chaos where there was so much trust and
Mhm.
blind faith. And I believe that what has happened in the last couple of years is kind of a nice And it's got, I mean, and
It's a
I
wake-up
always,
call.
I always try to find the good in every experience, no matter how bad it is. I've always been that person that tries to find something good in it, that silver lining. And I believe that we're opening our eyes to
An awakening.
things. Yeah, somewhat. I believe a lot of people, a lot more that would have protested against us and said, no, you're crazy, are thinking, wow, this is really possible.
Not so crazy.
Not so crazy. So Steve White is asking, okay, while we're on this subject, what are your thoughts on the Men in Black, a government agency, extraterrestrial, or both?
I think it's just my personal opinion. There are actually government agency collaborating with different kinds of ETs and coming
I
out
think
with
so.
Men in Black. They're real for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because some
I
of them look pretty obscure. Like
Yeah.
they look really. Like
I don't think
from
they're so
around
far
here.
off. I don't think they're
Yeah.
so far off from
Yeah.
the film in that
Right.
sense, not the comedic sense, but in the sense that they work together with them. I think they got that pretty dead on when they made that movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as Chinese myself, you know, I have the advantage of reading information originally in Chinese. And there's one information I'd like to share with you. I want to see how people.
Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
2 years ago, it came out. Actually, it came out from a laboratory in China, and there are actually two parts of the laboratory. One was used for civilian use, and the other was used for military purposes. And actually, it came out from the military portion of the lab. So that's why a lot of the people were kept in the dark. So when some Indian scientists found out and published like a paper saying that there's some kind of strange inserts like into this kind of thing that's really strange, doesn't seem natural. That paper got put away. It disappeared in a few days. So you can see the media control. You can see how everything's going. So being a Chinese myself, I tend to focus on the information from the whistleblowers from China. And I do believe that people should really look into it and to see if you should listen to the government or you should really have your own independent judgment.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
It's a long one.
It's a long,
Virginia, yeah. So the government wants us to fear ETs instead, but by mutilating cows. Weird way to have us deflect our attention from the military. I will go into the Akashic records to ask more. What intrigues me is the way the parts of the cows are extracted and reported that there have been no traces of blood around the mutilations. The body organisms have been extracted cleanly.
Maybe they're testing equipment.
I have to say something. Sorry. Virginia, the whole thing is because I look at this in a criminal way instead of political or spiritually right now. The agencies that are sent in to collect and to examine these situations and these mutilations are government agencies. Pretty much answers that there. That's who's going in when they're checking these. They're not sending law enforcement. The lab that is examining this, if there is even a lab that is examining this, are government agencies. We don't know what they found. We only know what they tell us.
Next.
Okay. Virginia asks, I wonder if the military might be holding ETs on Earth at any of their bases. Any thoughts?
Well, if they're able to hold any of the ETs, they're only able to hold the ETs from category or lower category of planets. Because you see, the ETs from category 9 planet, like Thiaoouba, they can actually shapeshift. They can disappear all of a sudden. Like Jesus, actually Jesus was sent by them to Earth to preach spirituality and love and reincarnation and life after death. So they are never going to capture any higher categories levels of ETs, only the lower categories.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next is going to be, since you mentioned it, I figure we're just gonna roll into it and take our chances because it's a sensitive topic, you know. Let's talk about um, the Bible. Let's talk about Jesus. Let's talk about what's in it because there actually are accounts of extraterrestrials in the Old Testament. You know, if you look about Enoch and Ezekiel, things like that, and it rolls into some parts of, you know, the New Testament. What was Michel told about all of this?
Well, Michel,
Put your
he
seatbelts on, kids. Here we go.
No emails. Send them to Joe Montalvo.
I know. Send them all to Samuel.
No, send them to Joe. Leave Samuel alone. We like him.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
so what Michel was told that this group of ETs, the Thiaoubans, remember Thiaouba is pronounced very similar to Jehovah. So according to this book, God the Creator is God the Creator.
Right.
And what Bible mentions about Jehovah is actually Thiaouba. So the Thiaoubans actually were constantly monitoring our activities and sometimes intervene, helping us to guide us to the right way of living. So they were actually involved in the distraction. Actually, they distracted the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, as recorded in the Old Testament of the Bible. They did that because the people in the two cities were punishing the people who were compassionate. And they were setting a very bad example to people who were in contact with them. So they were like cancer cells, like malignant tumors. So when you have a tumor that's spreading to other parts of the body, you would have to take it out, right? So that's what they did. So they killed the people in the two cities and punished them in a way that setting example to the future generations. So people learn the right way of living for a period of time, and people are forgetful. And then about 12,000 years ago, they, like a group of people from a Category 3 planet, the planet's name is called Hebra. They were trying to relocate to another Category 3 planet. But then there was some kind of crash on their spaceship, So they crashed onto Earth, and only 3 people survived. So that's the beginning of the Jewish people on Earth.
Oh, so that Hebrew.
Yes.
Okay.
They were highly spiritual, and they really were trying to survive on Earth, and then afterwards, because of their discipline, their super intelligence, and other people on Earth were so jealous of them, and because of their small number, so the Egyptians made slaves of them. And then when the Thiaoubans, so they were monitoring everything that happened. So they decided to choose to help the Jewish people. So they had Moses come to Earth. Actually, Moses was born like an Egyptian according to the book, not a Hebrew. So he led the Hebrews out of Egypt. So the Ethiopians parted the sea, actually the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea. And then led Moses, who led the Hebrews out of Egypt, and then wandered about 3.5 years to Mount Sinai, that location. So here the stories of the Old Testament goes. So that's what happened in the Old Testament. And then when they were speaking to Moses, they mentioned about the Messiah. So since then, the Jewish people were hoping of a Messiah coming to rescue them. Actually, when the Ethiopians spoke of the Messiah, they were speaking of Moses. So Moses already was the Messiah, but people didn't know about it. They only heard like a portion of their conversation. So they were still hoping like another Messiah coming to earth to rescue them. So after a few thousand years, when the Jewish people were kind of ruled by the Romans and things went down, moral decay, and the Ethiopians decided to help the people on earth again to behave more spiritually. They decided to choose the Jewish people for a reason, because they were originally from category 3 planet. They were originally more spiritual, and they were originally very disciplined. So they wanted to create this kind of phenomena, like someone fulfilling the prophecy of the Old Testament. So they inserted embryo into Virgin Mary's uterus. So someone amazing, someone fulfilling the prophecy was born from Virgin Mary. But because Jesus was born from Virgin Mary by the form of an embryo, he had to go through what some people call the river of oblivion, forgetting everything that happened in his past lives, also forgetting all his abilities to perform the miracles. So although he was highly spiritual, he was highly intelligent, very smart, he couldn't perform miracles. He went to India, so that's why some people say Jesus went to India. He went to China and then died in Japan. So that's why there's the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. So people can look it up. Shingo Village, Japan, Jesus Christ tomb.
And this is some place that they can go and actually see.
Yes.
So it's not like they're looking for something, someplace, digging and not finding it, or well, they assume it's in the Holy Land, but you're saying it is not.
Right. And Japanese people in general, they're very honest. They document everything very diligently, and they wouldn't make
disciplined.
Yeah, they wouldn't make up like a tomb of Jesus Christ for no reason. I mean, they
exactly. Yeah.
There's no reason for them to do that.
Right.
So that's the Jesus who couldn't perform miracles. So that's why when you read the Bible, you don't see any records of Jesus performing miracles before the age of 30, before he preached.
No, you don't. Not even in the story of the young Messiah, you don't either. No, that's true. So then did they give Moses the 10 Commandments? Was that something that was a part of it?
They did give the 10 Commandments to Moses. Yes.
Okay. Here's a comment.
So
yeah, I'm in trouble.
I know. It's very controversial.
Yeah, no, I'm just so surprised.
But here is a comment here, because he's disputing what you are saying. Amelia, can you get this?
Yeah. I can't pronounce your name, so I'm just going to say Najila, your last name. I'm sorry. So this way I don't Hashta Najila. Sorry. Well, Moses was born of a Hebrew woman of the tribe of Benjamin. He was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter. He was not an Egyptian by birth.
Yeah, apparently, right.
This is according to the Bible, according to the scriptures of the Bible. But according to this book, it says that there are some kind of mistakes by the scribes who transcribed the Bible. Because the Bible, the Old Testament, was written like a long time ago. And this book is very specific and particular about certain facts. It insists the author Michel Desmarquet to write everything that he was told and not to change anything. So Michel Desmarquet abide to their instructions to the letter, and if he were to cater to conventional wisdom, he would have written, "Oh, Moses was born out of a Hebrew woman." He wouldn't dare to challenge the conventional wisdom. that he
Mhm.
did.
Right. Well, we know that a lot of stuff was lost in translation. Many religious theologians have already found errors in translation. Um, I mean, it happens, and that's why there's people who are still trying to find the errors. You mentioned one, right away, the Red Sea and then the Sea of Reeds. There's been a lot to do with that as well,
Mhm.
with discrepancies and there's a lot of people that lean to both sides of that. So feel free to continue, please.
So back to Jesus Christ. So because the little baby Jesus born out of Virgin Mary couldn't perform miracles, and they really needed someone to perform miracles so that his preachings, his messages were paid attention by the people at that time. Because people in the past, as well as people in modern days, they wouldn't believe anything you say unless you're proven that you're different, you're the Son of God, and they wouldn't really care about what you like a common person would say versus someone with extraordinary. So they
Right.
really had to have this kind of person who could show the ability to perform miracles so that he could be believed by the people at that time. So what they did is that they did was that they made like a body of Jesus Christ that looked exactly like the Jesus who went to Japan. And then they had one of them going inside of the body of Jesus and becoming Christ. So he remembered everything, remembered how to perform miracles. He remembered his purpose on earth, what's going to happen to him, and what his mission was. So he preached all his messages about love and spirituality, and he died on the cross and resurrected 3 days after, just to show that there is life after death and there is
Mhm.
reincarnation. But somehow the concept of reincarnation got removed by the church councils,
Mm.
the Catholic Church. And this book is very specific about this fact. It named the 4 different church councils that intentionally distorted the meanings or the original scriptures in the Bible.
Hmm. Wow. Well, that's a given. I mean, so much stuff was omitted, left out. So,
I
you know,
wonder
to,
if that stuff that's left behind is in the Vatican. Sorry, Michelle. In that Vatican library.
we're just going to do a quick sponsor and station ID, and then we
Yes.
will continue.
Definitely. Let me just get to my screen. Thank you. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michel Desmarquet and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live on 105.3 FM radio from the gorgeous city of New Orleans. Tonight's guest is Samuel Chong, and we are discussing the Thiaoouba, I hope I said that right, prophecy. Shout out and thank you to the amazing people at Folgers Coffee for fully sponsoring our show from day one. Thank you for your support and your continuing sponsorship. We truly, truly love you, and nobody loves you as much as we do. A huge thank you for our outro and intro, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp rather, and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. Right now, he's been loading a lot of clips of the new music ready for Halloween. And Justin's music is perfect for that, because if you heard our intro and outro, you would know. Stream or listen or archives on the platform you normally use. Please remember, if you're there right now, subscribe and give us a like. Thank you.
There we go. Here's a good question. Zachman. Hello, Zachman.
Hi, Zach. Is there any correlations / scripture between Shinto and Buddhism that verifies that Jesus physically made his way to Japan?
Well, there are a lot of there are some ancient Japanese scriptures that talked about ETs from other spaces, and I don't know how to pronounce that, but because I read in kanji, I don't know how they're pronounced in Japanese, but it documents like flying saucers and ETs going into Japan. Speaking of Buddhism, in this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, the highest praise it gave to an earthling, someone born on earth, was actually the Buddha. And it says that Buddha really had this kind of realization of the truth, and he was someone extraordinary, having been born on earth, but finally realizing everything that happens, what the facts are. And so this is the highest praise it gave to earthling. So I think Buddhism has is a lot of the interesting concepts.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It seems as though, ET has been a part of our history, predating, I mean, going back thousands, tens of thousands of years, really. So we must assume that they live here, right? They've come here, they've had jump off points from the moon to here. So we know they must have settled here. And some people believe that some of these extraterrestrials are, in fact, us, but from the future. Maybe they're trying to intervene in some way. Why, watching everything that's going on right now, do you think that they're not intervening?
Well, I think they are giving the opportunity to us to respond to the challenges that we are facing right now. So I'm going to use an analogy. When
Okay.
you want to teach your child, like a mathematical problem, how to solve a problem like 3 times 5, you wouldn't just give the answer 15 to your child. You would show your child the concept, your daughter the concept. 3 times 5 is actually 5 plus 5 and plus 5. So that your daughter would actually learn the concepts and figure out the solution on her own. And similarly, we are facing a lot of challenges here on Earth. We are given the opportunity to respond to the situations we have right now. It doesn't mean they're not going to intervene. Remember, they intervened many times in the past. For example, they took Enoch to away.
Yes.
Remember, yeah. So Michel Desmarquet was given the book of Enoch. After he read it, he was really amazed, and
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
he suggested everyone to read it because it's very similar to what he experienced. The descriptions in the book of Enoch are very similar to what he saw and heard and experienced. And I want to bring your attention what happened to Enoch. He was instructed to write a book. A few decades later, his great grandson Noah, was instructed to build an ark. What happened? So I'm giving you a hint.
There we go.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that now.
No, it's true. No, it's true though. But history has a way of repeating itself.
Yes.
And this is a fine example.
Yes.
Anybody who hasn't read the Book of Enoch, I highly recommend you read it, because it will literally, it is an awakening experience. People don't realize how much of this stuff is in the scriptures, and how much of this goes back even to the Gnostic texts, which predates, like tons of this religion, Christianity, for sure. But it's all in there if you just have your open mind, and when you recognize it when you're reading it. Some of it's, like, as they say, hidden in plain sight. But so they did intervene in a way by telling, Enoch, but eventually it went to Noah to build the ark, and then you have this big, catastrophe, this world flood. Do you think that this book is here to warn us again of something that's coming?
Exactly.
And if so, what are we supposed to prepare for? Should we build another ark? Like, what's not a metaphor, but
Exactly. I see, although the book is titled Thiaoouba Prophecy, this book is actually a book of warnings, another warning to us to mend our ways. to follow the path of spirituality. And it actually gives a solution. And the solution lies in the book, the description of what happened on another planet, in which the planet, one of the countries on the planet, was ruled by a dictatorship under authoritarian regime. There were 4 people who preached love and spirituality, and they used a protest using non-violent resistance. So they just sat outside of the palace of that country and using their feeble voices and preached about the importance of people loving each other, and also the same messages preached by Jesus Christ. And then, being an authoritarian regime, they asked them to leave, and they didn't leave. They persisted, and they killed the 4 people using guns. And then after the 4 people died, 6 months later, the population of the country realized how important it was to form a concerted action so that everyone can be united and to preach and to act against the government. So a strike was formed. Everyone acted together using non-violent protests. They didn't have any violence. They didn't really cause any troubles. And just everything was shut down. The police joined the strike, the doctors, and also everyone joined the strike. So the country was in a meltdown. And then the regime backed down, and they decided to listen to the people. So that's how the entire country changed, by a concerted action of the people from a grassroots level. So the reason Michel met this ET, telling him what happened to the country on their planet, was actually a way of telling us we can really act together if we have the same conscious mind. When we have a strike in a non-violent way, we lose little. But the people, the special interest groups, they lose big. So it's going to be effective. They're afraid of us. They're afraid of the people, the governments, and the special interest groups. And this is actually the idea that's been promoted or issued in the other book that I translated from German into English, the 334 Lies, that supposedly to be written by the highest chair of the secret society that started in Germany. It says that even though the higher levels of their people, they have different levels. The highest levels, the people there, they have supernatural abilities. They can levitate, they can use astrology to predict what's going to happen in the future. And they have all these mind control abilities, but they're afraid of the people. If people get together, form like a group, and then have this kind of united conscious mind, they cannot defend themselves. They cannot really do anything against it. So it's the power of the people that they're afraid of.
Exactly. I think it's an awakening that needs to take place. I think just going through, for example, Michel, when he's trying to tell his account, writing the book, people don't believe him. I think people need to see things. And basically, we need something physical. They need to see something to lead them. They just can't take your word for it. Sometimes it's right in front of your face and you still refuse to see it. Maybe it's because people don't like change. People don't like being, rattled out of their comfort zone. So they're not too quick to move in any situation. in any situation. Virginia's asking, Emilia,
Thank you. What's the name of the secret society in Germany?
if you can say.
It's very interesting because the book never mentions about the name of that secret society, but I did some research. There are some strange languages in each chapter of the book, and I Googled by typing in those kind of strange languages or sentences. I
Mhm.
found the same languages appearing on the websites of the Illuminati.
Mhm.
If you
There we
check it out, Illuminati was founded in Germany. So there you go.
Oh, it could be a whole other show.
Oh
There
my
we
gosh.
go.
Yeah. Okay. Najila says Ukraine went through such a change in 2014, a united conscious,
Mind.
mind, as you say.
Yeah, I agree. I think it happens in spurts. Here's a comment by Wayne.
Yes, Enoch was visited by ET. I can't quote it, but it was something like Enoch walked with the angel, his feet firmly upon the ground, and the angel showed him the kingdom of heaven in the palm of his hand. I need coffee, Folgers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wayne
Yeah.
also says that was similar to looking at a picture held in memory of a tablet or cell phone, but Enoch would not have any basis to understand what he was looking at.
Something in the palm of your hand would definitely look like a form of technology for
Yeah.
sure. So for him, that would have been like, well, quite advanced.
If you really look at the book of Enoch and also what the Bible mentions about Enoch, he was actually physically taken by God or Thiaoouba or
Mhm.
Jehovah.
Mm.
And speaking of this book, again, I want to emphasize that there are specific verifiable details that people can look up. For example, when the ETs disinfected Michel Desmarquet, they used yellow light and blue light. If you look at the paper written by a professor from Harvard Medical University or medical school,
Right.
you're going to find out that the blue light has antibacterial, antiviral effects. And they used the blue light to disinfect him. That was a surprise to me, but it got verified by modern science.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
also mentions about like the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. Remember, this book was written in the late 80s. There was no internet back then. Michel Desmarquet never traveled to Japan in his entire life. There was no way he could have known that there was a tomb over there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and also it also mentioned about the needles in space. In the 1960s, it mentioned that this group of ETs was directly involved in removing the needles in space that the US government sent out. So I looked it up. In the 1960s, twice, the US government, the NASA, sent out like 300 millions of copper needles into space, hoping to improve the telecommunication systems at that time. And then they disappeared. So this matches what it says in the book. The ETs did this because they believed that it was going to cause a lot of damage to the people on Earth. That's why they removed the needles.
Hmm.
So this kind of little details can be verified. So this
Hmm.
book is unlike any other book.
Hmm.
Um, I
Is
mean,
the, are there any other details that I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds that we didn't cover, but feel free to enlighten us on a few more as we do have some time.
yes, it talks about the hydrogen engine. Written in the 1980s, late 80s, it says that the hydrogen engines were already invented by scientists on Earth, but because of the special interest groups, the petroleum companies, um, they got surprised. And the Theobans are asking us to take care of the environment by using hydrogen engines that run on water. So I did some research. There is an American guy named the engineer called Stanley Meyer.
Hmm.
He actually invented a car that ran on water in the
That's
70s.
right. And I bet you it disappeared.
I think he
So it
did.
disappeared.
Didn't he disappear?
Yeah, he got
Yeah. He was the one that disappeared.
Yeah.
He brought that to the attention of the government when he was seeking patents and things like that, and then he went missing.
That's right.
yeah. So I
So did
know
his car, but he never came back. His family never saw him again.
he was poisoned.
Yeah.
And I know how he did it. So there are different vibrations that cause resonance effect.
Mm.
But when you have a certain frequency vibration and that resonance with the covalent bonds of hydrogen and oxygen, that can actually break the covalent bond of water. So that you can actually, after hydrogen and oxygen separate, you can actually use the hydrogen as a source of energy. So that's what he did. He actually had this kind of device sending out a specific frequency that broke the covalent bond of water. But he made a mistake because he tried to seek profit. So he tried to patent it. Actually, a lot of people made the same mistakes because a lot of other people after him invented the same thing, but it never got commercialized because they were always thinking, oh, I got this great revolutionary technology. I'm going to apply for a patent, so I'm going to profit from it.
Mhm.
They don't realize that there are people monitoring all the patents. Once they try to file the patents, they're going to go after you, and the patent will never be issued because it involves the national security, quote unquote, national security. So whenever a patent has a technology that concerns with national security concerns, they don't approve it. They don't issue it.
No.
So what they need to do, I'm telling you the solution, is that they have to have an altruistic mind to really broadcast this kind of technology when they're actually making it worldwide immediately, and not to seek for self-benefit. They can actually benefit later, but in the very beginning, they have to spread the technology as widely as possible and to have as many manufacturers to actually make it as possible. And by this way, they are not able to suppress it anymore if a lot of manufacturers know how to do it.
Yeah, I completely with you on that. There's so much I could say. I'm just trying to just not get us into any trouble. So, big picture, their final, what they really stress, their final, I guess, is it prophecy for us, things to come? What do we need to be the most concerned about? What should we be working towards? Like, aside from spirituality, what should we be bracing ourselves for? Are we getting into another war? Have they given any information on that? End times?
Yes. So this book superficially touches a lot of topics. It's asking us to do additional research on the topics mentioned in the book. And I did some research, but my research is far from enough. And being a Chinese myself, I know the Chinese Communist Party, the government, did a lot of terrible things to the Chinese people and to the people in the world. And I'm asking you, everyone, to really seek for truth or knowledge, material and spiritual knowledge, by looking at alternative media sources and that are suppressed by the mainstream media. Specifically, look for information revealed by Chinese whistleblowers. They're suppressed by not just the Chinese media, but also American media. I tried to send some websites to my friend on Facebook. I couldn't send it out. So just do your own research, investigation. Focus on this one specific Chinese whistleblower that resides in New York. Miles. Focus on him, and also just to learn that life doesn't end here. We have reincarnation. Life is a learning process. We
Mhm.
learn by responding correctly and appropriately to life challenges. As a Chinese myself, I know there are going to be financial crisis coming up. It's going to affect every one of us. Be
Mhm.
prepared. When you have life difficulties, life challenges, if you want to get a solution, you can connect yourself to your soul or your higher self by meditation, by having a meditation, or by having a good night of sleep.
Mhm.
If the solution is good for your spiritual growth, it will be provided to you, and you're going to know what to do. There's no need to go through an agent like a pastor to connect to God, the
Mhm.
source or creator.
Mhm.
Because when God created us, it inserted a very tiny portion of itself to each one of us. So we are connected with God.
Mhm.
There's no need for a third person to be
Mhm.
intermediary agent.
Mhm.
So just meditate or have a good night of sleep, and
And
you'll be.
should we be open to extraterrestrials trying to reach out? We shouldn't fear that. We should open it and see, accept it, because it's bound to happen, right? It's bound to happen. It's happening to people all over the world. Should we lose that fear?
Yes, I think we should lose the fear
Right.
because I believe if the ETs can come to us,
Mhm.
they have passed the level of having the intention to invade us. They
Right.
wouldn't take advantage of us. They're here to observe and probably to assist us.
Right. I agree. I agree. Okay, I'm going to put this out there. Answer if you want to answer. I don't. That's, that's a
Yeah.
big one. Everybody
Yeah.
loves it. Everybody loves TikTok. So,
I'm one of those crazy people that's up all night. Is TikTok owned by the CCP?
It is. Almost all the companies from China, they're owned by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
mhm,
And I can tell you, they collect your information.
mhm.
That's the truth. They even control, for a certain extent,
But
Twitter,
as
Facebook.
does Facebook and Meta. Social media is a collector of information,
Yeah.
I think.
The website, the internet, period.
I
The
think so.
internet is as well. You go on a website to shop, it collects your information because then you're on Facebook and all of a sudden that department store or the wherever you were buying online all of a sudden is advertising on your Facebook timeline. I can
But
think something in my head and all of a sudden the link is on Facebook for me too.
I think what it is with TikTok, though, is that you have a younger generation who are very free with their information,
The
more so.
creators. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Creators' information is taken. If you're watching, it's not the same because
no.
you're not connected. But if
Mhm,
you are a creator, you have to
mhm,
sign into an account with them to
mm,
create, and that's where they take everything, including a credit card. So if your
mm.
kid is on TikTok, you should take a look at that.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, as a
Yeah.
certified court interpreter, I can tell from my personal experience, almost all the companies owned by, have a
Yes.
connection with China, they're controlled by the Chinese government.
Wow.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
we go. Well, thank you for that. Okay, we'll get one more question. Going
Oh,
back a little.
Virginia. Yes. $1 million question. Can you guess what percentage of the content of the Bible diverts from the original scripture?
I would focus on the red letter words in the New Testament, meaning that what Jesus spoke, that's actually the key messages in the Bible that people should focus on, not the other portions, because some of the other portions are actually either mistranslated intentionally or
Mhm,
unintentionally. So I would
right.
follow the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that those scrolls were looked at how many hundreds of years later when they wrote the Bible, and they were fragile and they were broken. They were piecing words together. You think about that paper, the papyrus is so delicate. And High Plato says 80%.
There we go. So,
Oh, he's
well,
clergy, so
we're at that part of the show where it's time for you to promote yourself. How can people find you? Tell us what you've got coming up next. I think we might have to do another show, but with on your secret society books, we'll have to talk about that
Definitely.
just to see if we're going to get us in any trouble or not. We're
Yeah.
FM too. We have to behave. So, but please.
Yeah. So for that other book, I have to mention to you that it's not for everyone because it's very graphic. It
Yeah.
contains a lot of violence, torture, and also sexual graphic
Yes.
descriptions. So it's not
Yes.
for everyone. Only the ones who are ready, are meant to read that book.
Hmm.
But speaking of me, I'm going to be writing my own book in the future,
Excellent.
in about a few months or so.
Right.
And people can find me by searching Samuel Chong, or by going onto my website chinasona.org/Thiaoouba, as spelled here Thiaoouba, with a capital letter T. And they can find a lot of information about me and the book Thiaoouba Prophecy.
Hmm.
I just ordered the book.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I will send you off an email once we're all off air and we're off the soundboard. And I always like to share how many people are actually listening in this evening, and people often go,
Yes, thank you so much.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you again so much for joining us, and I will be in touch and we will talk about that other book.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Samuel. Wow, that was a phenomenal show. Oh my gosh, that was just so highly informative. And I bet you a lot of people here are sitting here thinking, I so did not expect that.
What?
I know. That was a
What?
big wow factor.
I literally ordered the book while he
Yeah.
was speaking.
All right. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, so here we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Plato.
Here we are. Thank
Name
you.
Stuhl.
Thank
Haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Virginia, for all your amazing questions.
exactly. Thank you,
Thank you, Zach.
So we are here at the
Thank
end
you,
of the
Nikki
show.
La. Peace.
Yes, thank you. Oh, we love that. There we go. Put this up there. Thank you as everybody chimes in. But we have come to the end of the show. Huge thank you to Samuel Chong. Just so honored to have him join us when he initially emailed, because we give our email at the end of every show and say if you'd like to be on the show. And he did. And boy, how lucky were we. So thank you, Samuel Chong. Thank you, Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker. Outer Realm, the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. The Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Please don't message us on social media.
Not Facebook.
I surely don't have time to get to it. And I'm pretty sure Amelia's feeling the same. But, please do. We do get back to you via email. So whatever platform you were watching on tonight, please like us up, subscribe, whether it's YouTube, like us up on all the social media. We are in so many different places. Please check it out. Being a harpy, Folgers commercial, haven't harped in a bit. Let's get those Folgers commercials out. Let's go. Promote yourself and just make
Come
it
on,
about
Zach.
Folgers, and it's like a double whammy and everybody's happy, right?
Come on, Zach. No pressure.
That's right. Next week, 2 more new people. Okay. And it's going to be really, really cool. So Wednesday night, we welcome for the very first time, Alan B. Smith. He's going to be discussing the paranormal and UFOs with his own personal twists and experiences. And he'll actually call himself a paranormal experiencer. Like, this is really going to be cool. So make sure you tune in. Thursday night, I am freaking really excited because I have watched this TV show and really, really liked it. So for the first time, we welcome Kyle McDowell from the hit TV show Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. And we are so pleased that he's going to be joining us and discussing his experiences while filming this epic series. There's a lot of history attached to this. This isn't like a Bigfoot story.
Mm-mm.
This is a story of an area. This is a story of, the Native American people trying to get back to an area. This is folklore their oral history. There's lots with this. And
Mhm.
I was just completely so really, really honored that he's going to be joining us. Tomorrow night, check in for the Church of Mavis and the Centralists, two really great back-to-back shows for a Friday evening. And again, guys, I think the Gray Zone Uncensored is going to be this Saturday, 6 to 8 Eastern. I think. What's the name? Is the Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. Just like that. Check it out. Google it if you haven't heard of it. It is just like another wow factor moment. So anyway, everybody, have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Yeah, good.